Imagine popping a simple pain reliever, something millions do every day, only to never wake up again. This is where our chilling story begins. On a crisp autumn day in Chicago, September 29, 1982, the routine of daily life would soon be shattered by a deadly mystery. A 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman complained of a sore throat and fever. Her parents, like many others, reached for a bottle of Tylenol, a trusted household remedy. Hours later, Mary was gone, dead from what appeared to be a medical mystery. But the horror didn't stop there. Throughout that same day, in different parts of the Chicago area, more deaths followed, seemingly out of nowhere. Healthy people, with no prior illnesses, suddenly collapsed after taking Tylenol. Authorities were baffled. What could cause this sudden and fatal outbreak? The connection was far from obvious at first. 7 victims, all unrelated, dead within hours of each other. What was going on? As the death toll rose, fear spread like wildfire across Chicago. Was the city under attack? Or was this something far more sinister? With each death, panic began to set in. People were afraid to take even the most common medications. The public had no answers, and the media was buzzing with terrifying speculation. Could it be a deadly virus? A biological attack? No one could be sure. The Chicago police and the FBI swiftly launched an investigation, but with no apparent connections between the victims, they were left grasping for clues. It was a race against time. Each day without answers only deepened the fear. Pharmacies, hospitals, and drugstores across the region scrambled to pull Tylenol from their shelves, but for many, the damage had already been done. Amid the chaos, a lone scientist made a shocking discovery that would change everything. Traces of cyanide, a deadly poison, were found in the victims' Tylenol capsules. But how did it get there? And more importantly, who put it there? The discovery of cyanide was a breakthrough, but it opened up even more chilling questions. How had these pills been tampered with? And how many more were out there, waiting to claim another life? Once investigators knew they were dealing with cyanide-laced Tylenol, the scale of the horror began to set in. All across the country, people were afraid to take medicine. The realization that such a widely used product could be weaponized in this way sent shockwaves through America. Johnson & Johnson, the makers of Tylenol, were blindsided. They immediately issued a nationwide recall, pulling more than 31 million bottles of Tylenol from store shelves. It was one of the largest recalls in American history, and it came at a cost of over $100 million. But no price could be too high when lives were at stake. However, despite their efforts to contain the crisis, the questions loomed large. Who could be behind this? Was it a calculated act of terror, or the work of a lone, deranged individual? The investigation pressed forward, but each answer led only to more dead ends. Investigators found themselves facing the ultimate challenge. No witnesses, no video surveillance, and the pills seemed to have been tampered with after they left the factory. It was as though the killer was invisible, slipping poison into the bottles right under the public's nose. And worse, no one knew if it would happen again. With a nation paralyzed by fear, investigators faced a nightmare scenario. The killer had vanished without a trace, but soon, a name emerged from the shadows. Despite the intense media coverage and public fear, leads were hard to come by. Then, one name surfaced, a man by the name of James William Lewis. Lewis had sent a chilling letter to Johnson & Johnson, demanding $1 million to stop the killings. Was this the break investigators had been waiting for, or was Lewis simply taking advantage of the chaos for personal gain? Authorities honed in on Lewis, whose criminal background made him a prime suspect. However, despite his extortion attempt, something didn't add up. Lewis was in New York at the time of the poisonings, far from Chicago. Could he really have orchestrated such a complex and deadly crime from afar? Or was someone else pulling the strings? As investigators dug deeper, they found other potential suspects, each with their own motives. But one by one, they were eliminated, leaving law enforcement scrambling for answers. The truth remained elusive. No definitive evidence linked any of the suspects to the actual tampering of the Tylenol bottles. As the killer slipped through the cracks, the world demanded answers. and the fallout from the Tylenol poisonings reached far beyond the victims. With no clear suspect in custody, the legal and social ramifications of the Tylenol poisonings were immense. Johnson & Johnson found themselves at the center of a public relations nightmare. But instead of hiding, the company took unprecedented steps to regain the public's trust. They introduced tamper-evident packaging, ensuring that consumers could see if a product had been altered before purchase. This move would forever change the way over-the-counter drugs were packaged. The US government also stepped in, tightening regulations on consumer products and introducing new laws on product tampering. It was clear the world would never be the same after this incident. But even as the legal and safety measures were put in place, the question lingered. Who was behind this senseless act of violence? The case remained open, but cold. Decades have passed since the Tylenol poisonings gripped the nation, but the killer's identity remains a mystery. How could something so devastating remain unsolved? The Tylenol poisonings, despite the massive investigation and the unprecedented recall, remain one of the most baffling unsolved crimes in modern history. Over the years, there have been numerous theories, suspects, and rumors. But to this day, no one has ever been charged with the murders. Was it the work of a single person, someone who reveled in the chaos they created? Or was it a more complex conspiracy? The true motive behind these killings may never be known, but their impact still reverberates through the world of consumer safety and public health. The legacy of the Tylenol poisonings can be seen in every pill bottle, every tamper-proof seal, and every security measure that protects consumers today. But the mystery? That continues to haunt, a chilling reminder that some crimes, no matter how infamous, may never be solved. The killer who poisoned Tylenol vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only fear, and a question that still haunts us all. Could it happen again? With a nation paralyzed by fear, investigators faced a nightmare scenario. The killer had vanished without a trace. But soon, a name emerged from the shadows. Amid public fear, one name emerged: James William Lewis. He sent a letter demanding $1 million to stop the Tylenol killings. Investigators focused on Lewis due to his criminal background, but doubts remained. He was in New York, far from the Chicago poisonings. Could he have orchestrated the crime from afar, or was someone else behind it? As investigators dug deeper, they found other potential suspects, each with their own motives. But one by one, they were eliminated, leaving law enforcement scrambling for answers. The truth remained elusive. No definitive evidence linked any of the suspects to the actual tampering of the Tylenol bottles. As the killer slipped through the cracks, the world demanded answers, and the fallout from the Tylenol poisonings reached far beyond the victims. With no clear suspect, the Tylenol poisonings had massive legal and social impacts. Johnson & Johnson faced a PR crisis, but responded by introducing tamper-evident packaging, revolutionizing over-the-counter drug safety. The US government tightened regulations and introduced new anti-tampering laws, forever changing consumer product safety. But even as the legal and safety measures were put in place, the question lingered: who was behind this senseless act of violence? The case remained open, but cold. Decades after the Tylenol poisonings, the killer's identity remains a mystery. Despite a massive investigation and numerous theories, no one has been charged. Whether the act of a lone individual or a conspiracy, the true motive may never be known. The case left a lasting impact on consumer safety, but the mystery still haunts, a reminder that some crimes may never be solved. The killer who poisoned Tylenol vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only fear and a question that still haunts us all. Could it happen again? The Tylenol poisonings remain one of modern history's most chilling mysteries. A simple pill bottle became a deadly weapon, revealing how easily everyday items can be turned into tools of terror. Despite advances in forensic science, the elusive Tylenol killer has never been caught. The story remains unfinished. The victims' families still wait for justice, and the rest of us are left to wonder, could the Tylenol poisoner strike again? Could they be watching right now, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash terror once more? Thank you for watching. The mystery of the Tylenol poisonings may never be solved, but the lessons we've learned continue to shape the way we live today. If you enjoyed unraveling this dark mystery, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay tuned for more gripping crime stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. And remember, sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved.